When you see this title, you already know where this is going. Yeah, we're talking about thoughts, not the big ones you post about, not the smart ones you explain to others, the quiet ones, the ones that show up when you're alone. And today, we're not just talking about them. We're going to look at something deeper, something that most people feel, but don't really understand. Because for a long time, people believed that whatever is happening inside their mind, that's who they are. If a thought says something negative, they feel like they're negative. If a thought is confident, they feel like they're strong. It feels personal. It feels real. But here's where things start to shift. A long time ago, a man named Carl Jung started paying attention to something very strange. Not in a complicated way, not in a scientific lab, just by observing the human mind, carefully. And what he noticed was simple, but unsettling. There's a part of you that thinks, and there's a part of you that watches those thoughts. Two different things, and most people never separate them. They stay so close to their thoughts that they don't even realize they're observing them. Think about it for a second. You're sitting somewhere. A thought appears. Maybe about something you regret. Maybe about something you're worried about. You didn't call it. You didn't prepare it. It just shows up. Now pause there. If you didn't choose that thought, why does it feel like you? That question alone is where everything begins to change. Because if you follow it honestly, you start to notice something. Thoughts don't ask for permission. They don't wait for you. They come in on their own. Sometimes they're helpful. Sometimes they're not. But they don't check with you first. And still, you react to them like they belong to you. That's the part Jung kept pointing at. Not directly. Not in simple words like this, but through everything he studied, everything he wrote. He kept circling around one idea. The mind is not a single voice. It's layered. There are parts of you that you are aware of, and parts that you are not. And those hidden parts, they don't stay silent. They speak, not out loud, but through thoughts, through reactions, through emotions that don't make sense. Jung called one of these parts the shadow. Not something evil, not something dramatic, just the part of you don't fully see, the part you push away, ignore, avoid, but it doesn't disappear. It finds other ways to show up. And one of the easiest ways, through your thoughts, a random judgment about someone, a sudden insecurity, a feeling you can't explain. It feels like it came from nowhere, but it didn't. It came from a part of you you're not looking at. And because you don't recognize it, you assume it's just you. That's how people get trapped, not by their thoughts, but by believing every thought is theirs. Now here's where it gets more interesting. If there are different parts inside you, and they all produce thoughts, then the voice in your head is not one voice. It's many. Some are learned, from your past, from people around you, from things you experienced. Some are protective, trying to keep you safe, even if they're limiting you. And some come from parts of you you haven't fully faced yet. But all of them sound like you. That's why it's confusing. Because no matter where the thought comes from, it uses your voice. And when everything sounds like you stop questioning it. You just follow. This is why people struggle to control their mind. They try to stop thinking. They try to force positive thoughts. They try to silence everything. But that's not how it works. Because the problem was never thinking. It was identification. It was the belief that every thought deserves to be taken seriously, that every thought represents truth, that every thought is me. Jung didn't try to silence the mind. He tried to understand it. He looked at it like a system, not a single thing. And when you start to see it like that, something shifts. You don't feel attacked by your thoughts anymore. You start to get curious. Where did that come from? Why did that show up now? Instead of, I am this. That small change creates distance. And that distance is everything. Because the moment you create distance from a thought, you're no longer inside it. You're looking at it. And when you're looking at something, you have a choice to follow it or not. Most people never reach that point. They stay inside every thought, pulled from one idea to another, from one feeling to the next, without ever stepping back, without ever seeing the pattern. But once you start noticing it, even slightly, you realize something simple. You are not as trapped as you thought. The thoughts didn't have control. They just had your attention, and wherever your attention goes, that's where your experience builds. That's why the same kinds of thoughts repeat, not because they're true, but because they're familiar. And the mind loves what's familiar, even if it hurts you, even if it limits you, because familiar feels safe. Jung understood that deeply, that people don't just think randomly, they think in patterns, and those patterns come from deeper layers that most people never explore, but they still feel the effect of them every day. So when a thought shows up next time, instead of reacting immediately, just notice it. Not to fix it, not to fight it. Just notice. Because that small act is the beginning of something bigger. Not control, awareness. And awareness is where real change starts. So now, you're starting to see it a little differently. Not everything that shows up in your mind feels as solid as before. There's a slight gap, maybe small, but enough to notice. A thought comes in, and instead of immediately reacting, you catch it. Not fully, but just enough to pause. That pause is important, because before that, everything was automatic. Thought to reaction. No space in between. Now, there's something in between. Awareness. And once that shows up, things don't move the same way anymore. This is where Jung went deeper. He didn't just say, observe your thoughts. He wanted to understand what creates them. Because if thoughts are not random, then something is generating them, something beneath the surface. He called it the unconscious, not as a mystery, but as a real part of the mind. A part that stores everything you've experienced, things you remember and things you don't, moments you moved past, but never fully understood, feelings you pushed down because they were too uncomfortable. All of that doesn't disappear, it stays. And over time, it starts to shape the way you think, without you noticing. That's why sometimes a thought shows up, and it feels stronger than it should, like it carries more weight, more emotion, even if the situation is small. That's not just the present moment, that's something older coming through it. Jung believed that until you become aware of these deeper parts, they will continue to influence your life. Not in obvious ways, in subtle ones, in patterns, in repeated reactions, in the same thoughts showing up again and again. And most people never question those patterns. They just assume This is how I am. But it's not. It's just what has been repeated long enough to feel like identity. Think about something simple. Have you ever had the same kind of thought come back again and again? Different situation, same feeling, different people, same reaction. That's not random, that's a pattern. And patterns don't come from nowhere. They come from somewhere deeper, something you've experienced, something you've learned, something you've never fully looked at. And instead of facing it directly, it comes out as thought, again and again. This is where most people go wrong. They try to change the thought, they replace it, they fight it, they distract themselves from it, but they don't look at what's behind it. So the thought comes back, maybe with different words, but the same feeling, because the source is still there. Jung didn't try to remove thoughts, he tried to understand the source, to bring what's hidden into awareness, not to fix it immediately, but to see it clearly. Because once something is seen clearly, it loses its unconscious control. This is what he meant when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." At first, that sounds heavy. But when you really sit with it, it makes sense. Because how many times have you reacted in a way you didn't fully understand? Said something, and later wondered why? Felt something strong, without a clear reason? That's not random. That's something deeper, moving through you. And if you never look at it, it keeps repeating. Not because it wants to hurt you, but because it hasn't been understood yet. Now here's where everything connects. If your thoughts are coming from different layers, and some of those layers are unconscious, then trying to control your thoughts directly will never fully work. Because you're trying to control the surface, while the source is underneath. It's like trying to calm the waves without looking at the ocean. You might manage it for a moment, but it won't last. So the question changes. Not, how do I stop thinking this? But, where is this coming from? That question opens something. It shifts you from reacting to understanding. And understanding is where change actually happens. Now, there's another layer Jung talked about. Something even deeper. He believed that beyond your personal experiences, there are patterns shared by all humans, ways of thinking, feeling, reacting, that are not just yours. He called them archetypes, not something mystical, just recurring patterns, the same kinds of fears, the same kinds of desires, the same kinds of struggles, seen across different people, different cultures, different times. And sometimes, your thoughts are not even personal. They're part of something bigger, a pattern that has existed long before you. That's why certain thoughts feel so familiar, even when you don't know where they came from. When you see this clearly, something relaxes. You stop taking every thought so seriously. You stop turning everything into identity, because now you understand there's more going on than just you thinking. And slowly, without forcing anything, you begin to step back, not completely, not perfectly, but enough to not get pulled into every thought. And in that space, you start to notice something else again, that quiet presence, the one that sees everything, the one that doesn't react immediately, the one that was always there, but covered by constant thinking. Jung didn't try to eliminate the mind. He tried to bring awareness to it, to create a relationship with it, not control, not suppression, understanding. Because once you understand how something works, it stops controlling you in the same way. So at the end of all this, you're not left with a technique. You're left with something simpler, a different way of seeing. Thoughts still come, that doesn't change. But now, they don't define you the same way. They don't pull you the same way. Because you've seen something clearly, not just heard it, seen it, and once you see it, you can't fully go back. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who sees them. And that changes everything. This is where we end for now. But this isn't the end of the work, because what you've started to see here, it goes deeper. In the next video, I'm taking it further. My next video, The Mind is Not Your Friend, inspired by Sigmund Freud. This one isn't easy to make, and honestly, it's not easy to hear either. But it matters. So if this opened something in you, if even a small part of this made you pause and see differently, stay with me. Hit subscribe, drop your thoughts in the comments, because we're not just watching content here. We're starting to understand something real.